Hi, this is the instructional video for Lab 4 working with Gephi. We're going to begin by downloading Gephi. I have a Mac, so I'm going to download Gephi for Mac. Once I've downloaded Gephi, I'll see this Welcome to Gephi page, and I can create a new project by clicking on New Project. When you click on New Project, you'll see an overview screen, which we're in now, a data laboratory, which allows you to see the details of your data once you bring it into Gephi, and a preview screen. So let's go back to the overview for now. Now, the first thing we're going to do is get our data ready for import into Gephi. And to do this, we have to create both a node file and an edge file. We'll need to do this by doing some work in OpenRefine to transform our data set. Let's look at how we do that. So first, let's take a look at what our two files should look like once we're finished working with them. For the nodes file, we should have 3 columns, an ID column, a label column, and a name column. For the edges file, we need 4 columns, a source column, a target column, a type column, and a weight column. Creating the nodes file is pretty straightforward with OpenRefine. We can create the ID column simply by renaming the ID string column. Or you can just export the numbered cells, the consecutive numbers here, as in the example that I'm showing you. Now, to create the name column, just rename the from user or tweeter column. So we're just going to do that by editing our column and then rename the column to name. And then, as you can see, I've done the same here to create the label column. So then you just need to delete all the remaining columns and then just export as a CSV file, and your node file is pretty much ready. Now, it's a little trickier creating the edge file because what you have to do is extract all the @mentions from the text of your tweets. And when I did try this using the RDA lab, working with social media data at the link in the instructions, it seemed that we were running into the same problem as we had with the JSON parsing, where you could see it was functioning well in the preview mode, but I couldn't get any output into the actual cells once I pressed OK. So I'm going to show you another way that I figured out how we could extract the @mentions. First, you're going to create another column called mentions, which is going to be based on your text column. This will allow your text column just remain untouched in your data set while you're working to extract the other the @mention. So you're going to do this just by creating another column based on the existing column. So we'll take text, edit column, add a column based on this column. We're going to call it mentions, and then we'll just click OK. And it'll just replicate that column, giving it the new title, mentions. Now we're going to need to split this column into several columns based on the @ symbol. So you see in this tweet we've got one @mentioned Craig Mullins, this one same one @mention. But if we go down here, we've actually got 2 @mentions. So we're going to need to split these this column into several columns based on the @ symbols here. So to do this, we are going to go up and edit the column, and we're going to use the split column function here, and we're going to use the separator @ and we have to indicate that we want it split into at least say 5 columns to make sure that we allow for enough columns, and then we're going to click OK. So the results then that we get, you see here it's separated into the various columns. So we've got some columns that don't have the at mention, the text before the at mention. Here's the at mention, the previous at mention, but you can see that there's text after that. And then in our one with 2 at mentions, you see it's separated out the 2 at mentions here, the users that are being referred to. But we have text after that. And we don't want the text after that. We just want the name of the user that's being tweeted at. So we have to do a little bit more to refine our data further. So what we're going to do is we'll take the first column here, mentions to, with the first at mention, and we now need to edit the column and add a column based on this column. And what we're going to do, we'll call this one mentions 3. And we need to write a GREL expression. So we're going to write the following: value split, and we're just going to leave it unspecified here. And we're going to say, well, we want it to split at the first array. So the first array is always a 0. And you see that it identifies the first array, which is the first piece of the string of text that is in that column now, the cell of that column, is the at mention or the user that's mentioned. So it'll pull that out. So let's click OK. And there we go. We've got our at mentions now in a separate column. So we can actually now delete this column. So we'll just remove this column now. And so that's all good. We can also remove this column. We don't need it anymore either. So remove this column. So now we have to do the same operations with our mentions 3 here. So let's edit this column, add a column based on the existing column. We'll call it mentions 4, and we'll do value split and our quotation marks here in brackets. And then again, we want to pull from the first array, and we're going to click OK. And there we go. So we get our at mention out in this column as well. We'll just quickly delete, remove. Where are we? Remove this column, and there we go. So now our data is looking ready to create our edge file. Okay, returning to look at our 2 spreadsheets that contain the nodes and the edges of our network. I'm looking at the nodes file right now. So again, we want to have the ID, the ID string, the label, and the name. So I don't need to do any more work with this file. I'm going to close it. So I'll just, I've already got it saved, so I don't need to save it again. Now I'm looking at the edges file. And again, we want to make sure we have our source, our target, our type, and our weight. And our default for graph type is directed, and the weight default is 1. So the target, the source is the person who is tweeting, and the target is the at mention. So remember that we had, in some cases in our export from OpenRefine, we had 2 columns for at mention. And to work with Gephi, we only want 1 at mention column. So what are we going to do then to actually tidy that up? Well, I found the easiest thing, because there aren't so many at mentions, so it's a little bit manual, but it's probably easier than the alternatives in OpenRefine. Is, let's say I have another at mention, Sam Mendes, just for the sake of argument, So there he is. So what I want to do is I just simply want to insert a new row. So an entire row here. Then I'm just going to grab the row that has the extra @mention tweet in it. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it just below here. And so now we've got the Pravin Bud @mentioned plus Sam Mendes. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to replace that one with Sam Mendes. And get rid of this one and get rid of this one. When I've done that for all of the extra @mentions, I've moved them down into a separate row that aligns with the same tweeter. Then I can just delete this column, just like so. Okay, so we're good to go now. We'll save that and we'll move to the next phase, which is importing this all into Gephi.